Good evening and welcome to Stories at 7, Jill and Ori. Bought a little something. Love the sound of the bell at Christmas, don't you? Always makes me feel really Christmassy, sound of Santa's bells. So what's been going on in Mary's house? Well, it seems that a mini godfather Drosselmeer has taken the place of her toy owl on the toy shelf. Strange. And she's been chatting to the Nutcracker about her naughty brother, explaining that he doesn't really mean it, which is rather sweet. I've got a glare from this with my glasses. I have to be wary of that. Anyway, let's see what happens. So basically, a little mini godfather Drosselmeer has appeared on the toy shelf. Tres odd, say I. But let's see what happens in the rest of the chapter, the second half of the chapter. But now there broke out from all sides a wild creaking and squeaking, and soon, behind the walls, there was a trotting and galloping of 1,000 tiny feet, and 1,000 little lights shone through the chinks in the floor. They were not tapers, no, but small, sparkling eyes. And Mary perceived that a host of mice were everywhere, peeping forth and working themselves out. I've had mice. Terrible pain to get rid of, but in the end we got a cat. That did the job. Presently they were going trot, trot and hop, hop around the room. Troops of mice, always growing more numerous and spirited, galloped up and down and at length formed themselves into ranks, as Fred was accustomed to draw up his troops in the ranks. Remember, he has those toy soldiers. When he gave orders for a battle, this struck Mary as very comical, and not having any natural horror of mice like many children, her dread would have passed off, when all at once there came a squeak so piercing and startling that an ice-cold shudder ran down her back. Eek! Oh, what did she see now? Yes, indeed, my worthy reader, Fred or Charlie or whatever your name may be. I know that your heart is as much in the right place as that of the clever and brave Field Marshal Fred Stapperhaum. But all the same, had you only seen what came before Mary's eyes, you would have run away on the spot. I believe you would even have jumped quickly into bed and drawn the clothes further over your ears than there was any need for. That's just what Mary could not do, for would you believe, right under her feet burst up sand and lime and crumbled stone as if thrown out by some subterranean power, and from the floor arose 7 mouse heads with 7 glittering crowns, hissing and squeaking terribly. Before long the body also squeezed itself clear, and on the neck of which grew these 7 heads, and the huge 7-crowned mouse shrieked with all its throats 3 times, piping out a greeting to his army, that at once set itself in motion and charged, trot, trot, pit, pit, dot, dot, straight upon the cupboard, straight upon Mary, who stood still by the glass in front. Ooh, a 7-headed mouse. The girl's heart had been beating so violently for distress and terror that she believed it would soon burst out of her bosom, and then she would die. But now all the blood seemed to freeze in her veins. Half fainting, she staggered back. Something went creak, crack, crash, and the pane of the cupboard, as in a pane of glass, the pane of the cupboard which she had struck with her elbow was shivered into pieces. Strange goings on in Mary's toy cupboard. At the same moment she felt a smarting pain in her right arm, but at once a weight seemed to be taken off her heart, for she heard no more squeaking and shrieking. All had become still, and though she durst not look, she thought the mice, scared by the crash of glass, must have scurried back into their holes. But what happened next? Right behind Mary there arose a strange stir and bustle in the cupboard, and tiny voices began to be heard. Awake, awake, arms to take, this is the night, rouse for the fight. And then pealed out a pleasant, pretty chime of bells. That's my little bell toy. SFX, sound effects, cried Mary joyfully, springing up quickly to take a look. Now she saw how the cupboard was lighted up in some wonderful fashion, and how all its inhabitants were on foot. There were several figures there, besides the dolls, running about in confusion and shrieking with their little arms. All of a sudden, Nutcracker jumped up, threw the blankets far away, and sprang to his feet on the bed, shouting loudly his war cry of defiance. "Nick, knack, knack, stupid mousy pack, quick, quick, whack, hew, hick and hack." And with this, he drew his little sword and waved it in the air and cried, "You, my dear vassals, friends and brothers, will you stand by me in the hard battle?" At once, spiritedly replied 3 clowns, a pantaloon, 4 chimney sweepers, 2 fiddlers, and a drummer. "Yes, Lord, we will hold with steadfast loyalty with you. We will march to combat, to victory, or to death." So all the toys are coming alive. And they pressed after the martial Nutcracker, who ventured a dangerous spring from the upper shelf. That's quite funny, actually. I don't know if you can see there's a little cupboard there. We can imagine that there's loads of toys in there coming to life. And they pressed after the martial Nutcracker, who ventured a dangerous spring from the shelf. Imagine the shelf. They, for their part, could well manage the jump. They, for their part, could well manage the jump, for not only were they thickly clothed in cloth and silk, but there was nothing inside of them but cotton and bran, so down they plumped as softly as bags of wool. But the poor Nutcracker, remember he's made of wood, would surely have broken arms and legs, for remember it was nearly 2 feet high from the shelf on which he stood the one below, and his body was as brittle as if cut out of matchwood. Yes, Nutcracker would surely have broken his limbs, and had not at that moment leaped down Missy Clara from the sofa. Now Missy Clara, if you remember, is Mary's doll. In her soft arms, she received the hero with his drawn sword. "Ah, dear kind Clara, how I have mistaken you." Oh no, this is Mary. "Oh, dear kind Clara, how I have mistaken you," sobbed out Mary. "I'm sure you must have given up your bed to Front Nutcracker with good will after all." And now Missy Clara said, pressing the young hero gently to her silken breast, remember she's a doll, "Oh, sir, will you, sick and wounded as you are, yet expose yourself to combat and peril? See how eager for the fray are your blood vessels, and how they troop themselves of certain of victory. Clowns, pantaloon, chimney sweepers, fiddlers and drummers are already drawn down below on the field, and the motto figures in my compartment all astir, preparing for the fight. Will you not, dear sir, rest in my arms, or behold the battle from the top of my high feather hat?" Thus spoke Clara, but the Nutcracker behaved quite roughly, kicking so hard with his legs that the doll had soon to let him go and set him on the ground immediately. Then he knelt gallantly on one knee, murmuring out, "Fair lady, ever in the thick of combat will I remember the grace and favour thou hast shown me." At this, Clara bent down so low that she could seize him by both arms, lifted him softly, made haste to loosen her richly spangled girdle. It's quite saucy for a children's book, and would have thrown it over his shoulder if he had not taken 2 steps backward, laying his hand upon his breast and speaking with formal politeness. "Do not deign, O lady, to waste your favours on me." Here he stopped short, sighed deeply, torn from his shoulder the ribbon which Mary had bandaged him, pressed it to his lips, hung it around him as a concierge, then, bravely brandishing his glittering, unsheathed sword, sprang, light and active as a bird, over the ledge of the cupboard and into the doom. You remember, kind and honoured reader, that Nutcracker, even before he really became alive, must have deeply felt the affectionate goodness with which Mary had treated him, and on this account, not only because Mary was so kind, he would not wear a token from Missy Clara, the doll, splendid and beautiful as it was. The true-hearted Nutcracker chose rather to adorn himself with Mary's simple ribbon. But what now is going to happen? As soon as Nutcracker sprang down, the squeaking and pattering broke out again. Under the big table swam the deadly squadrons of countless mice, and over all towers the frightful 7-headed Mouse King. Oh, how will the battle go? End of chapter. You have to wait till tomorrow, when our lovely Kate Walsh We'll come and read the next chapter and we'll find out who's going to win the battle. Is it going to be the 7-headed mice? Or is it going to be the brave Nutcracker and his army of toys from the cupboard? Don't know about you, but I can't wait to find out. Meanwhile, see you all soon. Thank you for watching.